Our evening speaker tonight is Daniel Gonzalez. And I love his background. He started turning wrenches when he was a little boy in his father's trucking business. His father drove trucks and repaired them himself, and Daniel was right there next to him. And that's how he learned to be a professional mechanic. Probably about 3-4 times a day, maybe more, especially at a conference like this, somebody will say, we could get all this done if we could only get funding. How many of you have heard that recently? Yeah, it's a familiar story. Well, Daniel is a pro mechanic, and he just decided that he would go ahead and build stuff anyway. So he's been successful at it, as you're going to see. He's from Ventura, California. He's got an associate degree in as an electronics technician, a branch of physics, and he's really been doing some good stuff with the GEET. Let's welcome Daniel Gonzalez.
Forgot to turn the on switch on.
Okay,
Mic test?
there we go.
All right. I'm going to blame it on somebody else.
All right. All right, so as he said, Daniel Gonzalez. I'm representing GEET tonight. I just been a little kid turning wrenches right with my father, and then came across GEET one day. I guess it started out, I had a major accident in 2008 where a motorhome fell on top of me when I was working. And I was paralyzed for about 3 months. I learned how to walk again, obviously. And a friend came to me and said that you can run on water. And I told him, well, you're crazy. But then I looked into it, and then what's water made out of? 2 of the most explosive gases in the universe. So I got into that, and I was successful with the hydrogen generators, but it's really expensive, and it's really complicated for the average person to understand. So I started looking at other technologies, came across plasma plugs and different things like that, and I came across GEET. I used the free internet plans, and I made a successful unit. After that, I went and visited the inventor in Oklahoma. And then I took his course. I met a very generous man, and he helped me get a dealership. So I got a dealership, and since then I've been an instructor. I've taught about 4 classes. I've had every single one of my students leave with a successful unit, and they've been really happy. So I guess, I don't know if you guys have heard of GEET, obviously. What it is pretty much I like to call it a miniature refinery, because you can run on many different fuels. I myself have run on different things, anything from crude all the way to urine. I've played around with many different things, but I like to stick with gas or soda or something like that, something I can show people. What it is I'm going to explain basically what the system does and how it works. So if you look up on the screen, there's 3 major components to the reactor. You have your rod, which is the most important part. That's where you get the transmutation of elements, or you get the vapors that transform into the basic elemental gases. So that's the rod inside of the reactor, right in there. And there's the reactor pipe where the reactor sits. Or this is the reactor pipe, inside is the reaction rod. And you have cold vapors coming in this way, and they'll hit that rod that you saw in this slide, and they'll speed up up to the, people say it hits Mach 1. So we haven't got that in books yet because they won't allow it, but they say it gets up to Mach 1 speed in there, and that's one of the energies that helps transmute the elements. Then you have your exhaust pipe, where you have hot exhaust coming in this way, exiting that way. And that's the basic setup of a reactor system right there. You have your, what you do is on a basic, you have an internal combustion engine, and you guys know that you have a lot of heat coming out of the exhaust. Well, that heat exits your motor in a natural spiraling vortex motion. So it leaves there, goes in a vortex down this way, and exits through your muffler. Then you have in an intake, in a vacuum, I'm not sure if you guys are too familiar with the vacuum, but in a vacuum, when you suck something through a vacuum, it also travels in a spiraling vortex motion. So you have two counter vortexes coming against each other right in there. So, and those vortexes themselves create electromagnetic fields that help break down the molecules into the elemental gases. And there's just another cutaway of the reactor when it's in the process. So we have many different things we use to vaporize your fuels. Like say in a basic internal combustion engine, you have a carburetor. Now you guys know a carburetor, what it does, it feeds your internal combustion with liquid gas. What we're doing different in our system is we completely eliminate this in a stationary system, and we have what's called, or what we call a bubbler. Now what this does is you basically have your fuel system right in here. You have your fuel, whatever your mixture wants to be. You know, you can run, like I said, whatever you want. This one I'll be running on a mixture of 20% gas, 80% soda and coffee. And so what that does is you fill in your mixture right in here, and an internal combustion engine creates vacuum as the piston goes down on what's called the intake stroke. And so that vacuum is what you use to bubble right here. So you have a pipe that goes all the way down to the bottom, and you have a clearance so that it can make bubbles. Those bubbles then get broken up with the stainless steel wool that's in here, and those bubbles make vapors. Now vapors, you could say, is what you call the third state of matter. You have your solids, your liquids, and your gases, and then you have plasma. So first we want to do is get liquids, and we want to convert it into what we call vapors, gases, whatever it is, and you run it through here, you suck it through here, through the motor, run it through your hose up to your reactor. Once it gets into the reactor, it's going to get, you have really cold vapors. These vapors get pretty cold because of the vacuum. So you have vapors coming in about 32 degrees, come up to the reactor, and they hit your reactor, which is around 600 degrees. So you have major temperature difference. And so energy that we use in there is called thermal inertia. It's just something that's used in nature. I don't know if you guys ever heard what will actually freeze faster in a freezer. Say you want to make some ice. You think of, normally you might think, okay, let's put some, room temperature water and let's put it in there so it'll freeze up. But if you were to put boiling water in a freezer, it would actually freeze a lot faster than room temperature because of what's called thermal inertia. How many of you guys have jumped on the freeway, put the metal to the pedal, and once you get to your desired speed, you let off, but you continue to speed up a little bit. You guys pick up momentum. Well, that's basically what's happening here. You have really cold molecules get heated up really rapidly, and well, as you might already know, that's a lot of energy being right there. So that's part of what breaks down your molecules. So you're going to have some soda and some gasoline coming in here to your reactor. They get a major temperature difference. Keep in mind, you also have your vortex creating the spirals. So you got your hot, and you got your cold, and you got your vortexes. Then it hits the rod. Now the rod is very important. This is a rod right here that we use to run crude oil. It's longer because crude oil has a longer chain. But in this one, we're going to be using gasoline and soda, so we have a rod about this size. It's smaller because gasoline and soda have a smaller molecule chain, so it doesn't need a long rod to break it down. So the vapors hit this rod and speed up to Mach 1. right? So they start to spiral around this magnetic rod that's spinning. Now this rod will actually pick up and center itself and start to spin all on its own. It's almost like as if it has a mind of its own. So it'll pick up and center itself where it wants to be and stay in the desired position. So your vapors come and hit it, they hit this, and kind of about towards the end, right around here, the spin and the different energies in there break down that molecule down to the basic elemental gases. So what you have coming out of here is completely different from what you got coming in here. Now, with crude oil, crude oil is, the oil that they pull straight out of the ground. When you run crude oil in something like this, crude oil has around 72 elements. After we've run crude oil through this reactor, we have 12 elements coming out. We have an abundance of hydrogen, helium, oxygen, and a couple of different elements that aren't on the periodic table of elements. So those come out here. You got a really hot plasma, because you got to keep in mind, this right here, it's 600 degrees. So your plasma comes out here, and it cools pretty rapidly because in normal atmosphere, it's not 600 degrees. It's going to cool down really quick. So you have this cooling unit, which is just basic copper, and cools it down to your desired, temperature, around 70 degrees. Mix it with a little bit of fresh air, and you got a really good running fuel. Now, we've had some universities help out the inventor, Paul Pantone, and help them out with research, and they've actually found out that this plasma gas that's being created will burn top dead center. Now, what that means is there's going to be less friction, which means less wear and tear on your motor, giving you an extended life on your motor. They've also recorded that the temperature, and I myself have seen this, is the temperature in a motor drops dramatically. A motor like this, we've actually gotten a reduction of 70 degrees colder running at full throttle. Now, because this fuel burns top dead center, you have the ability to get these RPMs much higher. Let's say this revolutions per minute are normal with the stock fuel delivery system. You're going to get about 3,000 RPMs. After the conversion, you can jump up to 7,000 RPMs and not have the motor blow apart. Now, this is because of how the gas burns and how it explodes. It's a different kind of explosion than gas. Gas is an explosion. This plasma gas is what's called an implosion-explosion. And as it implodes, it draws heat from the motor. So that's one of the reasons why you get a colder running motor. Now, you can imagine that's going to help you out with horsepower. You're going to have a greater efficiency because you're not going to need as much fuel as you did before, because what you're sending in here is pure vapors. So some people have actually just used the pure bubbler because just vaporizing the fuel itself is going to give you a good efficiency. But without this, you're not going to have your multi-fuel reactor. So you're limited to gasoline, right? Now this unit right here is what one of my students built in my classroom. I have a classroom I teach in Bakersfield, California, and my students come by and they can bring a piece of equipment. I've had people bring air compressors or generators, but mainly what students come is they get a demo motor like this. We run it stock, we write down the data, run when it runs, we do our testing, and then we do the conversion from scratch. Now, depending on the student's skill, and if they know how to work with the proper tools, then I let them build it from scratch. And then they can leave, and that way they know what they need to do. Now, this is pretty simple. As you guys can see, this looks like pipe stuff that you can get from Home Depot. And a lot of it is. Now, there's certain things that I do different in my class that give you a better efficiency than Home Depot stuff, because you can't expect to get the best efficiency out of your reactor from Home Depot stuff. So you want to work with different kind of materials, different kind of things that you can get at different places. But just to prove how simple it is, we like to show some Home Depot parts, so everyone can get a little bit interested and say, hey, I could build that. Because actually Paul's had some little girls build these demonstrations, these little demo motors. I mean, as young as 11 years old, right there is I have some pictures of little girls where they're threading their pipes and they're putting all their weight into it. Oh, maybe you can see right there. Let me see if I can pull these up. These are some girls, along with their dad's help, that, no, I don't think you can see that. Yeah, that's too small, but maybe you guys can come by later and see it. So it's fairly simple to build. What is this motor right here is something you can pick up just about anywhere. But this is just to demonstrate that we can do it, just any motor. Now I have done other motors, like say at the moment I'm working on the 350 Chevy, because a lot of people want to see something with a load, they want to see it in a vehicle. So in a vehicle, we don't use a bubbler, because as you can see, we're going to be driving on hills and this and that. The liquid level is going to be different, and you're not going to produce the same amount of vapors anymore. So what we like to use for a 350 horsepower motor is a simple carburetor off a lawnmower. So you could imagine what kind of efficiency you're going to get using a small little carburetor like this to power a big motor like that. And that's really all you need, is a small little carburetor. You could use two if you want to get the extra horsepower, but you're going to cut down on your efficiency. The inventor has done quite a bit of different things. He's had some generators that actually freeze up at the exhaust. Now that's pretty weird, because you go to your car right now and you touch the tailpipe and it's going to burn you. Well, this one, he has a motor, or he's had motors where they've actually can give you frostbite. You got to be careful because it gets so cold. That's a really good running reactor. Now, you guys might be interested in hearing what kind of efficiencies have we seen with this kind of system. Now, there's a lot of legal stuff that I have to abide by because of our great government. So legally, I'm allowed to tell you that you get an increase of 50% efficiency guaranteed and a reduction of 80% emissions. Now, we have recorded better than that, but I'm not really allowed to speak about that. If you take the class, we teach you quite a bit of stuff, and we can talk a little bit more freely in there. But as of right now, we can show that. Now, I don't want to bore you guys too much with too much talking, so I plan to run this motor after the speech outside, and hopefully you guys get a little bit interested and maybe want to build one for yourself. We are offering plans, or you can go online and use the internet plans. My plans, though, you get technical support from me, you get pictures of different things that I've done. I've converted one pickup, some air compressors, different things on there. You'll see on the plans if you want. Or you can just, like I said, use the internet plans. Those work. That's how I built my first one. So it's pretty easy. The inventor, his main goal was to get this out to humanity, right? He's gone through quite a bit of different problems with the government because, well, yeah, they don't want this out there. So he gave out the free plans so that, everybody could get out there and try it. But, out of the million people that actually downloaded the plans, you only have a certain amount of people that have actually taken the time to build it. Why? I don't know. People are busy. But I was one of those persons that got to build one, and here I am now, speaking in front of you guys, which has been a really great experience. I've never done something like this, but it's fun. I meet quite a lot of different people, and it's been a really good experience for me. I guess, is there any questions you guys might have that has to do? Yes, sir.
What would it cost to put this configuration together?
On what type of motor?
Well, I don't know what you have here, but like this one right here.
Motor like this, we've got it down to about, let's say, $150 for a conversion like this. To run, let's say, you can't run battery acid or crude oil on this because the material is not corrosive proof. It'll actually corrode with the crude oil. But this, you could run like, your soda and different stuff.
Daniel, when we take questions, we're gonna beg everyone's grace that, and there's a new place for the microphone. It's actually all the way over there at Desperation over there. Actually, the reason is that because we film you, and that's a clean background that doesn't have a bunch of distractions on it that will go on the DVD. So when Daniel, whatever time you want to start doing some Q&A, we'll ask everyone to just step over the mic and line up over there, okay? And if we keep your microphone as high as possible, then we don't have to gain it up, and we don't get the feedback.
All right. All right. Well, before we do a little bit of questions, I'd like to talk about the different anomalies that happen in this reactor. Do you mind putting up the other PowerPoint, John, please?
Okay, good. I'm sorry I missed that.
Oh, can you put up the other PowerPoint?
That one or the other one?
The other one. All right. So we're going to talk of what he calls the Molly effect, named after his wife. What happens in these rods is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with magnets. Magnets have a north and a south, right? And no matter which way you flip the magnet, the north will stay where it originally was, right? North, south, south, north. Well, what we found out in these rods, after you run them in this reactor at a certain time, the north and south poles flip. You guys probably won't be able to see it, but maybe after the presentation you guys can come up here and try it for yourself. What happens here is you have your magnetic compass, right? Finds your north, south. You guys have seen these before. So we bring it to your rod, and you actually see that the north is always attracted to the top. No matter how many times you flip it, you always have the north at the top. Now, Paul has actually given this rods to physicists, and they don't even know how to explain it, so I won't even be able to explain it. But something that he's been saying is it picks up a type of aura. I'm not sure if you guys are aware that your body has an aura, and you guys have a north and a south pole. So this is something similar because you have a brass rod that does not have any kind of magnetic, let's say iron, doesn't have any iron, doesn't have any magnet in it at all. But after you run it in this reactor, it picks up a magnetic north and south. But the north is always at the top, and south is always at the bottom. Now, why is that? Don't know. Some people call it biblical north, some people call it true north. For some reason, it's doing that. Hopefully one day, someone will be able to explain that to us. Then you have the transmutation of elements. As you can see, what goes in is carbon and sulfur, and you get different elements. I can't really read that, but I'm sure it says H for hydrogen. You have a HE for helium. And what that simply shows is what you have coming in here gets completely transmuted, and you have something completely different out here. And that's what you run in your motor. So that's transmutation of elements. Here is I don't know if you guys ever wanted to get the Earth's magnetic field, how it works. Is your equator. And that's why you have your north and your south down there. Okay. So some people might be asking me, in an internal combustion motor, you got to have the exhaust flowing out. You got to have it flowing without any kind of resistive back pressure, because that back pressure can actually cause your motor to, misfail. You could bend a valve or blow a piston. Well, what we've tested is this pipe, this reaction pipe that goes in there, it does not restrict at all the flow. What it does, it actually helps speed up, because in a you get what's called a Venturi effect. And when you send gases through a Venturi, it actually speeds up and gets a better flow. So there's no problem with restriction. And this is just, Cambridge labs. They found out that the GEET fuel only blows in the dead center of the piston, which lets you get to those higher RPMs and all that good stuff. This is just simply talking about thermal inertia. You put water inside of a freezer that's at 38 degrees. You got water at 40 degrees, and you have it at 200. And after 25 minutes, the 40-degree water is at 39.5, and the 200 degrees is at 32. That's that thermal inertia I was talking about. All right, and that's some of the anomalies that they found out in here. You learn, the inventors actually discovered 181 different anomalies that happen in this reactor, and we go over them in class because there's just too much to talk about right here in this little short time that we have. So now that I've gone over that, I can answer any questions that you guys might have.
You said that the mixture in the tank was 20% gas. I was just wondering, is hydrocarbons always have to be in the mixture?
Well, we have found a way to use nothing but special fuel. I guess what special fuel is basically what coffee's made out of. I don't know if you can consider water a hydrocarbon. I don't think you can. So, yeah, no, not always. But, yeah, mainly we use hydrocarbon or anything organic. We have been able, like someone's actually hooked up to their septic tank and run off of that.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, you don't always have to have hydrocarbons.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, so the question I asked was, in this configuration here, looks like you've got a motor. I couldn't really tell. Is that a generator behind it as well?
Which one?
Well, you got the silver part, looks like the motor, and...
Well, yeah, this is the motor, but no, there's no generator.
No
this
generator.
is just a
Okay.
motor ready to hook up to whatever you want. Anything from go-karts, water pumps, generators, whatever it is that you want to hook up to.
Okay, and you said approximately 150 was the retrofit, I mean, with the motor in that configuration?
No, the motor runs about, this motor right here, you can pick it up for like 130,
Okay,
and then 150 for parts.
okay. All right, great.
Yeah, you mentioned that we could go on the internet and get plans to do this. Would those plans be as efficient as the ones that you sell or that you teach in your class?
No, because the plans on the internet is just to teach you the principle and to show you that it works, but you won't be able to run on many different fuels. You're only limited to different fuels. The plans that we sell actually give you details and some of the secrets that Paul actually held back from releasing to the public.
Okay, so you get more efficiency from...
You get more efficiency and you learn how to run with different fuels.
Okay, thank you.
Can you run that unit for the class here?
Yes, I want to run it outside though, after
Oh, okay.
we get done
Got
with
it.
all this.
Thank you.
All right, no problem.
By the way, running it inside is not a challenge for carbon monoxide or anything. In fact, those of you who were at TeslaTech 08 that was held at University of New Mexico know that we went up on stage. We just have a challenge with the facility, and there are particular rules. We can't run anything inside here. But some of those of you who've been around for a couple of years know that at ETs in the past, Charter Technology Conferences, we have run the GEET inside.
Yes.
And those of you who were at INE, like 96, 97, and 99, know that we had that little itty bitty room. Harvey, you were there, and we ran the GEET inside there, and it ran like 35 or 45 minutes. There wasn't a drop of gasoline in there, but there was some waste oil, Coca-Cola, some urine, and some pet feces, and some other things, but it ran like 35 or 40 minutes. And the oxygen content on the meter, on the O2 thing that we had there, the oxygen content went up from 19.7 to 22.4.
Yes.
Request lines are open. Next contestant, please.
Hey, thanks for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, to be clear, the GEET is an engine modification system as well as a way of making a brand new engine. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's, we like to call it a retrofit. Because you
Right.
can install it on any internal combustion motor, as long as it's working.
Right, so you can convert like a 2001 RAV, Toyota RAV, if you wanted to.
Yes, but the only issues I'm running into through these newer vehicles is they like to run everything to the computer, everything from your headlights to your transmission. So if I install something like this on that, I'd have to get someone to rewrite the program on that computer
Right.
to make it think it's still running on gas. Or else
Right.
you're gonna have a bunch of check engine lights, your headlights might not turn on, and your transmission won't shift properly.
I go through that all the time. Where's John Pantone today?
Paul
That's
Pantone?
Paul Pantone. And then also, what is your plan to create learning centers to distribute this as widely as possible? How's it going to work? What's the grand design?
Well, okay. Well, the inventor is in Duncan, Oklahoma. He's at the moment only teaching dealerships like me. He closed his doors to the public about 2 months ago. My plan is to teach as many people as I can, just so, God forbid, something were to happen to me, there'd be enough people out there to continue the research, to continue building them, and to continue to teach. Because I really believe this could really help out humanity. I mean, you could imagine, we no longer need gasoline. I mean, you can use urine, you can use your fecal matter, you can use your plastic from your water bottles that you guys recycle every single day. I mean, there's also a way to use aluminum cans in here with some battery acid to run it. So that's my goal. I'd like to open up as many schools as I can. At the moment, I have one. I'm very, very busy. As soon as I get back, I got 2 classes to teach. I got 2 radio shows to do. And there's just not enough of me to go around. So I'm going to be looking for some help. Hopefully get some people that training and that can actually build them and get successful units out there, because I don't want to just pick anyone that, knows how to talk. I need them to build them, to make them work, and to, be able to diagnose any kind of problems. I am in the process of manufacturing a type of, not exactly kits, not really allowed to sell kits, legal issues, don't want to get into it, but we can sell parts. And if you contact me, we can get you the parts you need to do your conversions. I have a lot of people that want to help me make parts and help me doing certain things. And hopefully they'll come through and help me manufacture things where, the average Joe can just bolt it up to their motors and not have to go through all the different experiments that I had to go through, and make it cheap and easy for everyone to use. So I guess that's my main goal, to make sure that everyone gets to use it. Not really into the whole making money, because I think there has to be someone that has to take one for the team, and not necessarily become a millionaire, but more of a person that just likes to help. All my life, being a mechanic, I would always get in trouble by my mom, because I would always fix my friends' cars or family or whoever, and I wouldn't really charge them. And I just wanted to help, and that's the type of person I am. So with this technology, I wanted to go around and teach for free, but then Paul told me, that's not really possible, because it wouldn't be fair for the other dealers. And then he also said, well, how are you going to survive if you're teaching for free? So I charge a decent price. I don't want to get all ridiculous, because I want to make sure that people can afford to come. So that's my goal. I want to make sure that it gets out there and people know about it, because it's fairly simple. Like I said, little girls can build it. Anyone else can build it.
Daniel, may I add something on the grand design and Paul Pantone?
Okay.
Those of you who are familiar with the history, Paul Pantone was detained wrongfully, and when he went in, he was a very healthy man, feet in wonderful condition, face full of wonderful teeth that didn't have much for cavities or tooth decay or anything. He came out a broken man. He looked like he had aged 20 to 25 years when he came out. He was almost completely gray when he came out. He had very few teeth left in his mouth. He suffered multiple fractures of on his feet and damage that wasn't repaired. While the years sometimes people say, well, the years are taking their toll. With Paul, it may not be quite the years, it may be the mileage. He's slowing down, and the mileage has taken a brutal toll on him. His wrongful detention really, Paul is basically withdrawing to try to reproduce himself on a very small basis, to have them reproduce others so that they can carry on. Paul, the amount of energy that he has available is rapidly depreciating, so he's trying to focus on more on quality right now than quantity.
Right. Thank you.
Next question.
Daniel, when you're using other than hydrocarbons like water or urine or any of those kinds of things, and you let that engine sit for a while, do you have any rusting or oxidative problems in the engine?
Well, see, that's why we make sure that you use the proper kind of materials, because you do have those issues. Now, for, that kind of corrosive material, you want to use stainless steel. So you're going to spend a little bit more money, but you're not going to have those issues where you're going to have the corrosive or the rust or anything like that.
I mean in the combustion chamber itself?
Oh, inside the internal combustion,
Yeah.
in the cylinder?
Yeah.
No, because this will actually burn, and what comes out of here does not condense or turn back into water or soda or whatever it is. It gets completely transmuted into a plasma gas. This gas, or GEET gas as Paul calls it, you can actually capture it and save it for whatever you want to use. You could cook with it, you could save it to start your motor up again and prime your reactor. So you do not have that condensation back, so you don't have to worry about that inside the motor.
Thank you for your work.
Not a problem.
For your rod, how do you determine the length for your mixture, and is there different diameters that you use?
Yes. Now, for the rod, we go into major detail in the class, but the rod actually tells you how long it wants to be for your desired fuel. So what you do is you put your fuel in your bubbler, you put the longest possible rod in there, you run your reactor, and then after the break-in time usually is between 30 to 40 minutes. So after this 30 to 40 minutes, you take that rod out and you let it cool down. Make sure that it's cold before you check it with your compass. And the compass will actually tell you, along with the rod, when you bring it together, it'll actually tell you how long it wants to be for that desired fuel. Yeah, pretty cool. So, you don't have to worry about knowing the exact sizes. You can actually have the rod tell you itself.
What mixture have you found that's most efficient?
Most efficient is, well, I guess it all comes down to what you can get or what you have access to. But if you have access to anything, I'd probably go with crude oil, because Paul's actually recorded 1,200 miles per gallon using crude oil.
And are any of the other GEET members worried about the wrongful detentions that have...
Yes. We've actually had a group that was doing really good. I'm not sure if you guys heard of them, called the GEET guys. Now, they were doing really good, and they accidentally, or I don't know, purposely, said some information they weren't supposed to on the internet, on YouTube, and now no one can get a hold of them. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there, and there's quite a few dealerships that really haven't actually done anything because of maybe that reason. They're a little bit worried. Everybody got families. I myself have my family that I got to worry about. So, I got to be careful with what I do, and I got to make sure everybody that I teach is somebody that's not going to be a loose cannon that's going to go run out and tell everybody, hey, look, we're running on water, or I'm getting triple my mileage and this and that. Got to be very careful.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm Lynn Ottinger from Utah, and I'd like to congratulate Paul for all the work he's done. I've been following him for quite a few years, and I'd like to congratulate you because it looks like a real nice machine you're working on there.
All right, thank you.
My question is, I'm interested in magnetism, and you said when you pointed up, it's negative, all points north.
Well, can you repeat that, sir?
The magnet, you said when you run the rod,
Yeah.
and it becomes magnetic, and both ends are north if you point them up.
Well, actually, it's not even a type of magnet because you can't even pick up a paper clip with it.
Yes.
That's why it's more of a aura.
Well,
But-
now, when you lay it horizontal, what does it do?
It's the same thing. The only thing with horizontal is you don't have as much efficiency. The best running reactor is a vertical reactor.
Well, will it will it pull a compass from one end north and the other end south when
Yes.
it's straight up and down?
It will also do that. One thing that we've actually noted is that when you have a piece of metal that's never been magnetized touching the reactor and the other end is touching the motor, it will actually become magnetized like a magnet.
Yeah.
Daniel, may I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Originally, when the GEET effect was first discovered, it was discovered that a magnetic field, if the rod developed a magnetic field, what happened was that the GEET effect developed quicker and sooner. And there's an exoendothermic reaction occurring around the rod. It's a reduction oxidation at literally a nuclear level. And one end of it is hot and the other end is cold. One is an anode, one's a cathode, and the other's a north and a south. And they found out that originally that to help it burn in, they would, if it was laying horizontally, if it faced north while it was burning in, that it would develop the magnetic signature sooner and faster. When it's, if you orient it straight vertically, it develops the signature, not quite as fast, but it still develops it. And what happens is that that rod, when it floats perfectly, hovers with a perfectly circumferential slipstream around it, and it actually hovers. You want the inlet on the bottom, so it lifts it up and it causes it to hover. If you have it vertically oriented, it's easier to make it hover dynamically in the circumferential vortice of the air that's flowing around it. Now, what happens when you have air flowing at that rate with humidity? Anybody ever seen a cloud that has a lightning, an electrical discharge? Well, what happens is that the rod develops a static charge, and through the anode and the cathode, it begins to discharge, and it sparks and arcs, and it goes to the housing, and then it goes through the housing and back to the other end of the rod, okay? And what happens is that when it does that, every time you have a magnetic field discharge, electronic discharges to a magnetic field, it induces another electronic charge in the rod, except it's going the other direction. Okay, and then that discharges back and forth, and you get this thing discharging back and forth to the point where, as long as that rod's hovering and it doesn't touch the housing and ground out, that you actually at one point develop, the arcing gets so violent, and I'll use that word, that you actually have a continuous discharge of a bluish purple plasma. And some people say, well, how do you know that, John? Well, we have something we call plasma cams at the shop, and that we screw right on the end of the reactor, that the plug-in, the top end, that looks straight down, and we got viewports and we got cameras that we actually have watched it, you know, and we've actually watched it develop, and we've realized that dynamically unstable rods, sometimes they vibrate and they chatter and they ground out the rod. And you know, Paul will tell you that you can make a reactor out of glass. Well, that's true. But that rod will vibrate if it's dynamic, the least little bit dynamically unstable, and it'll shatter the glass, or if you're using glass for the rod, it'll eventually shatter it, you know, because there's a point where you're starting up or slowing down, that all of a sudden that rod will begin to vibrate and hit the sides, and it'll break. But the rod will take on a magnetic signature. It's not very strong. We've measured it as high as 2.3 Gauss. That was the highest we've ever had a rod measure so far. That answer your question?
Yes, very good. Thank you. That was really a great.
But by the way, there's other people in the back, and here there's a lot of, I'm looking out and I'm seeing faces. there's a lot of people out here that I know have made GEET motors, reactors. The PM back here, he's got, I don't know how many reactors and rods at his shop. He's built, I don't know how many, I've watched him build them, you know, but there's a lot of experience here that if you have questions like that, somebody, these guys have done strange stuff like dual reactors and, you know, tubes in the same housing and everything. They've done all kinds of, you know, but there's a lot of experience. If you need to know real discrete questions, there may be somebody here that can help answer it.
Thank you, John.
Why wouldn't you use a neodymium magnet if it will help to create the effect even more?
You don't want anything that's already magnetized. You want to be able to create that magnetic field because you don't want something that strong. For some reason, those rods aren't doing the transmutation.
So then you want a non-ferrous material
Yes,
then?
exactly. Something with iron in it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Suppose you got a four-wheel drive and you're going up, your rod is vertical, now you're going up a 45-degree angle. How does that upset the reactor?
Well, once you break in the reactor, we found that it doesn't make a difference once you have that initial signature. So
Okay.
as long as you break it in properly, you can be traveling all over the world.
So it won't cut your horsepower down by 50% or something
No,
like that?
no,
Okay.
nothing like that.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no further questions, then maybe we should go outside and see if we can run this motor.